This is Garrett with DIY on the house. So today on DIY on the house, we're going to be discussing how I rehandled this axe. As you can see, I split wood and we heat our house. I split all of our wood with this axe. The original handle, I got a couple seasons out of it and the head got loose and became kind of a dangerous situation, so it came time to rehandle it. Let's get started on the installation process of your replacement axe handle. Alright, so some of the tools you're going to need to hang your axe handle. They're pretty basic, just hand tools. You're going to either need a file or a rasp. You can also get away with using an electric or pneumatic sander. I'm going to use a rasp, just some wood glue, Sharpie, a punch. In this case I have a bolt. You're going to be using that to remove the old axe handle. A hammer, some sandpaper, 150 grit to 220, boiled linseed oil, a hand saw, and then some stuff to apply the linseed oil, and the tape is going to go on my axe edge so I don't cut myself while I'm hanging the handle. So removing the old handle is a pretty simple process. This here is the bottom of my axe head, and you can see the handle would have been oriented like this. To get it out, I made a cut along the bottom with my hand saw just so I wasn't having to fight the handle when I was trying to manipulate it in the vise. The top of an axe head in the casting is larger than the bottom, and that's because when you put your wedge, in this case we're going to put a total of 3 wedges in it, it grabs up top and it becomes, or creates a mechanical lock to make sure that your head's not going to fly off. So when your head starts getting loose or falls off, it's because that mechanical lock has been compromised. So creating that cut, you can see in this axe handle here, the head was pressed into the wood here in not quite a correct fashion. It created a shelf here, so after making the cut, I drove it down from the top using just our bolt here. Resting the axe head in the vise and hammered it down through the top. Then the old handle is removed. Just come in here with some sandpaper, clean out the inside of your casting, and it's ready to start the installation process for the new handle. My replacement handle here on Amazon is advertised as fitting heads in this range. This is a 3.5 pound head. The eye here is advertised as fitting 2 5/16 by 3/4 axe head, or axe head opening. So a couple more things I wanted to go over with on selecting an axe handle. The local hardware stores don't have a very good selection anymore, which is what pushed me to purchasing it on Amazon. A lot of the ones in the hardware stores are either going to have poor grain structure, odd sized eyelet, or they're going to have like a varathane on them. And you don't want a varathane on your axe handle because it's a pain in the axe to get it off, and it just creates blisters. And you don't want blisters on your handle when you're chopping wood. So now we're going to start the fitting process. What I'm going to do before I start handling this during the fitting process is tape up the edge. Just give it a couple layers of masking tape. I tuned up the edge right before I had a handle failure, and so it's pretty sharp, and the last thing I want to do is cut myself while I'm handling it. So to start the fitting process, just make sure you clearly identify the top and bottom. Like I said, the top of this eyelet is going to be larger than the bottom. So you're going to start by taking your axe handle here, slips in there, and you're going to rock it until you can see where it's rubbing. So you can see the rub spot is right here and right here. It may be hard to see, but you can see where the wood's slightly polished from the head rubbing on there. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your rasp or your electric sander, and you're going to remove that polished section. And you're going to continue repeating the process until you get it down to about this area. And you can take it and you can mark kind of your end goal. You want to put it right there. You don't want to duplicate what that factory axe handle did and leave a wood shelf. You kind of want it to taper into the axe head, so you're not creating a cut in the wood that's going to allow movement and a point of failure in the future. So you're just going to continue repeating the process until your axe head gets down to about that mark. So I'm going to continue working on the axe handle, and once I get it down to the correct location, I'll come back and we'll set the wedges. So now that I've got the fit I want, I've followed the steps detailed in the last little section there until the axe head is sitting just where it starts to get real wide here and curve out the back. One thing I did notice on this handle is this width here is a little narrow. So I'm not going to get a perfect fit with this setup, but it should be a lot better than what it was. The next step is when you get this handle, particularly the one you ordered on Amazon, it's going to come with a wooden wedge. It actually came with this one, but I've got this one here, and as you can see, it's much too wide for the eyelet in the head of my axe. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a razor knife. I'm just going to trim it to the appropriate width so that it fits in there and we can seat the axe handle. So I've got my wooden wedge trimmed. What this is going to do is when we're ready, we're going to hammer this into the kerf. That's this cut right here. Another thing you want to get, because this handle did not include them, is a set of metal wedges. And what these are going to do, these are going to be hammered in the top and not only secure this wedge in place, but add pressure going in different directions. So you'll need a set of those. These were also purchased on Amazon. I think they're only a couple dollars. They included another wood wedge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to seat this in place. So I got that, and take some wood glue, and I actually got this idea off of Wrangler Star in his video. You're going to add your wood glue to only the bottom half of your wood wedge. Alright, so with the axe head fully seated and my wood glue on the wooden wedge, I'm going to insert it into the kerf here. And I'm going to use the old axe handle to seat it. So what I should have done prior to putting in the wedge would be to trim that just a little, so I could have seated this further. What I'm going to have to do is improvise and get something to push this down further because I want a lot tighter fit. So what I've got here is I got a piece of my old handle. Like I said, I messed up a little and should have trimmed that down. But I'm going to continue trying to seat this a little. Make sure I get a good fit. It's going to last me a long time. Alright, so that's about as far as it's going to go. So now we got the wedge seated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this down. I've seen it a couple different ways, whether it's flush with the axe head, really high, or just a little bit above. What I'm going to opt for is just trimming it to the top of this wedge where it ended. I'm going to trim it there, and then we're going to stake in our metal wedges. So to do that, I'm just going to use a fine tooth handsaw here. Alright, so now that I've trimmed the top of the axe handle off to, it's about an 1/8 inch above the top of the head, I'm going to take these metal wedges. Like I said, I bought them on Amazon. The link will be in the description. I'm going to hammer 2 of them in here. You don't want to get them too close to the edge, but what you want to do is I'm going to put one probably about 3/4 of an inch away from the edge of this eye on both ends. So to avoid damaging the handle, like I said, I don't have a vise in here. I'm just going to rest the handle on my shoe and tap them in from the top of the handle. So I went ahead and marked where I'm going to put them. I'm going to take my metal wedge here. I want to center it up a little better than that. Alright, so both of those are seated. You can see I got a little bit of split into the wood here. That's not a big deal. What these are going to do is these are going to add additional pressure going forward and backwards on the axe head, while this main center wedge is adding pressure to the outside. So what this wood has done now, you saw how loose the fit was earlier. By adding this metal wedge, it's filled the void in this casting where it starts narrower and ends wider. So we've got a mechanical lock locking the head down into the handle, and now it's secure. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand the handle just a little more. I'm going to add some cosmetic upgrades, and then I'm going to finish the wood and it'll be ready for use. So I just sanded the handle down with a little bit of 150 grit just to smooth it out. There's still plenty of imperfections from the factory. You can still see some of the yellow here and there. But overall I think it came out pretty nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this handheld torch, I'm going to lightly brush it over the handle, and it's really going to make that grain pop and look nice before I add this boiled linseed oil. Now that I've added the torch and got that grain to kind of pop a little, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish or treat the wood with some boiled linseed oil. I'm just going to apply some on a rag. You're going to have to do a couple coats, give it 10 to 15 minutes to cure. And after that you can just refinish it as needed, and that wood's going to be protected from the weather and last a long time. So now that we've applied the finish, everything's installed, the axe is ready to be put into service. As long as it's done properly and properly maintained, it should last many seasons of chopping firewood and being in the forest. So hope you found the video informative and easy to follow. If you follow the instructions, you can have a nice axe handle just like us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching DIY on the House.